Jaiwoo wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the maze of pipes above him. The cooling system in Section D was acting up again, and of course, they sent him to fix it. He was always the one who got the late-night repair jobs. Being the youngest mechanic on Horizon's Edge station meant everyone else could go home while he crawled through tight spaces with his toolbox. The diplomatic quarters were quiet at this hour. Most of the alien delegates were either sleeping or attending the evening reception in the Grand Hall. Jaiwoo preferred it this way. He could work without anyone watching him or asking questions. He checked his data pad again. Room D47 was just ahead. He pushed open the door, expecting to find an empty room. Instead, he froze. A massive figure sat on the edge of an enormous bed. She was at least 8 feet tall, with scales that shimmered like oil on water in the dim light. 2 curved horns rose from her head, and her eyes glowed a soft amber color. She wore a loose robe that barely fit her warrior's frame. Empty bottles lay scattered on the floor around her feet. Jaiwoo's heart jumped into his throat. He recognized her immediately. Everyone on the station knew Commander Nari, the Draconite warrior who led the peacekeeping forces. They called her the Giant Sister because she protected her troops like family. I'm sorry, Jaiwoo stammered, backing toward the door. Wrong room. I was just... No, come in, Nari said, her voice thick and heavy. She waved a clawed hand at him. You're late. I've been waiting. Jaiwoo blinked. Waiting? I think there's been a mistake. I'm just here to fix the cooling system. Nari squinted at him, her glowing eyes focusing with difficulty. You're not my attendant? No, ma'am. I'm a mechanic. Jaiwoo. From maintenance. She stared at him for a long moment, then laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound that shook her whole body. Of course you are. Of course. She gestured to a chair. Well, Jaiwoo from maintenance, you might as well sit. The damage is done. The damage? Jaiwoo glanced around nervously. Is something broken in here? My pride, Nari said, reaching for another bottle. Sit. Please. I've been talking to walls all week. At least you're real. Jaiwoo knew he should leave. This was clearly not a good situation. But something in her voice made him hesitate. She sounded tired. More than tired. She sounded lonely. He sat down carefully on the edge of the chair, keeping his toolbox close. Are you all right, Commander? Nari took a long drink from the bottle. The liquid inside glowed faintly purple. Do you know what this is? She held up the bottle. Ceremonial wine from my homeworld. We drink it when we celebrate victories. She laughed again, but this time it sounded bitter. I've been drinking it alone in my room. Very victorious of me. The peace summit seems to be going well, Jaiwoo offered, not sure what else to say. The peace summit is a circus, Nari said. She leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. Everyone pretending to care about peace while secretly planning how to gain advantage. Do you know how many meetings I sat through today? 17. 17 meetings where everyone smiled and nodded and said absolutely nothing real. Jaiwoo had never heard anyone talk about the summit like this. The news feeds always showed smiling diplomats and hopeful speeches. That sounds exhausting. Exhausting, Nari repeated, nodding. Yes. That's the word. She looked at Jaiwoo with those glowing eyes. Do you know what else is exhausting? Being the giant sister. Being the strong one. The one who never complains. The one who never shows weakness. She stood up suddenly, and Jaiwoo nearly fell backward in his chair. She was even taller standing. She paced across the room, her tail swishing behind her. My people expect me to be perfect. A perfect warrior. A perfect leader. A perfect example of Draconite strength. That sounds like a lot of pressure, Jaiwoo said quietly. Nari stopped pacing and looked at him. Really looked at him. You're very young, aren't you? 24, Jaiwoo said, feeling his face grow warm. 24, she repeated. I've been in command for 12 years. Do you know what I was doing at 24? Fighting in the border wars. Killing and nearly being killed every day. She sat down on the bed again, suddenly looking deflated. And now I negotiate peace. Ironic, isn't it? Jaiwoo didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Nari took another drink. Can I tell you something, Jai-woo from maintenance? Something I can't tell anyone else. Every instinct told Jai-woo to make an excuse and leave. But he found himself saying, okay. I'm lonely, Nari said simply. There. I said it. The great Commander Nari, terror of the battlefield, protector of her people, is lonely. She laughed, and this time it sounded like it might turn into crying. I haven't had intercourse in 18 months. 18 months of sleeping alone. Of waking up alone. Of pretending I don't need anyone. Jaiwoo's face turned bright red. He stared at his toolbox, wishing he could disappear inside it. Commander, I think maybe you've had too much wine. Maybe I should call someone. No, Nari said firmly. No more attendants. No more handlers. No more people who work for me. She looked at him again. You're different. You're just a mechanic who walked into the wrong room. You don't want anything from me. I just want to fix the cooling system and go home, Jai-woo admitted. Nari smiled, showing her sharp teeth. It wasn't a scary smile though. It was almost sad. Honest. I like that. No one's been honest with me in months. She patted the space next to her on the bed. Sit here. Talk to me like a person, not like a commander. Jai-woo hesitated, then carefully moved to sit on the very edge of the bed, keeping a respectful distance. What do you want to talk about? Anything, Nari said. Everything. Nothing important. Tell me about being a mechanic. Tell me about your life. Tell me something real. So Jai-woo did. He told her about growing up on a mining colony. About how he always loved taking things apart and putting them back together. About how he saved for 3 years to afford the test to work on Horizon's Edge. About how he still felt like he didn't quite fit in among all the important people on the station. Nari listened. Really listened. She asked questions. She laughed at his stories about fixing impossible machines with improvised parts. She told him about her own childhood, training from age 5 to be a warrior. About never having time for friends or hobbies or anything except combat drills and strategy lessons. Hours passed. The purple wine bottles emptied. The room grew warmer as the faulty cooling system struggled. Neither of them noticed. You know what's funny? Nari said as the night grew late. I thought tonight would be like every other night. Alone with my wine and my regrets. But here you are. A human mechanic who came to fix my air conditioning and ended up fixing something else entirely. I didn't fix anything, Jai-woo said. I haven't even looked at the cooling system. Nari laughed, and this time it sounded genuine. You're right. You're absolutely right. You didn't fix anything. She stood up, steadier now than before. But you listened. And sometimes that's more important than fixing things. Jai-woo stood too, picking up his toolbox. I should probably go. It's late. Thank you, Nari said. For not running away. For not treating me like a monster or a legend. For just being here. You're welcome, Commander. Nari, she corrected. When it's just us, call me Nari. Jai-woo smiled. Good night, Nari. Good night, Jai-woo. As he left the room, Jai-woo's mind was spinning. He had just spent the night talking with one of the most powerful warriors in the galaxy. And she was lonely. Just like him. Just like everyone else. He looked back once. Nari was standing at her window, looking out at the stars. She looked smaller somehow. More human, even though she wasn't human at all. Jai-woo didn't know it yet, but his life had just changed forever. And so had hers. 3 days passed before Jai-woo saw Nari again. He had thought about that night constantly, wondering if she even remembered their conversation. Maybe the ceremonial wine had erased everything from her memory. Maybe she regretted telling him such personal things. Maybe he should just forget it ever happened. Then his supervisor called him into the office. Jai-woo, you've got a special assignment, his boss said, looking at his datapad with a confused expression. Commander Nari specifically requested you for maintenance work in the diplomatic quarters. All her repairs. Only you. Jai-woo felt his stomach flip. She asked for me? Yeah. Strange, right? I didn't even know you two had met. Anyway, here's the work order. Her climate control needs adjustment, and she wants the lighting system checked too. Head over there this afternoon. Jaiwoo took the datapad with shaking hands. This was either very good or very bad. He wasn't sure which. When he arrived at Nari's quarters that afternoon, he knocked carefully on the door. His toolbox suddenly felt very heavy. Come in, Nari's voice called from inside. She was sitting at a desk, reviewing documents on multiple screens. She wore her full military uniform today, all polished armor and medals. She looked exactly like the legendary commander everyone feared and respected. Nothing like the lonely woman from 3 nights ago. Jaiwoo, she said, looking up. Thank you for coming. You requested me specifically, Jaiwoo said, not sure if he should mention their previous meeting. Nari stood up and walked to the window. I did. I wanted to apologize for the other night. I was inappropriate. I said things I shouldn't have said. I put you in an uncomfortable position. It's okay, Jaiwoo said quickly. Really? I didn't mind. She turned to look at him. You didn't. No. I mean, you were honest. That's rare. At least, it is in my experience. Nari smiled slightly. That's kind of you to say. She gestured around the room. The climate control really is broken, by the way. This isn't just an excuse. Though I admit I could have accepted any mechanic. Why didn't you? Jaiwoo asked. Nari was quiet for a moment. Because you listened. Because you didn't treat me like a commander or a legend or a diplomatic asset. You treated me like a person. She sat down on the edge of her desk. I find I need more of that in my life. Jaiwoo felt his face grow warm, but he smiled. I can do that. While I fix things. Good, Nari said. Then let's start with the climate control. It's making my room feel like a desert. Jaiwoo worked while Nari returned to her documents. But after a while, she started talking. She told him about the frustrating meeting she'd had that morning, where 3 different species argued for 2 hours about the color of the conference room walls. She told him about missing her homeworld, even though she hadn't been back in 3 years. Jaiwoo listened and occasionally shared his own stories. He told her about the other mechanics who played pranks on him because he was new. About how he'd accidentally vented atmosphere into the wrong section last month and nearly got fired. You what? Nari laughed, a real laugh that filled the room. How do you accidentally vent atmosphere? There were 2 buttons right next to each other. Jaiwoo protested, grinning. And they were both red. Who designs a system like that? Their conversations became routine. Every few days, Nari would submit a maintenance request. Sometimes there really was something broken. Sometimes there wasn't. Jaiwoo would arrive, fix what needed fixing, and they would talk. About everything. About nothing. About their lives and dreams and fears. Nari told him about Draconite culture. How female warriors were expected to stay unmated until they retired from active service. How physical strength was valued above everything else. How showing emotion was considered weakness. That sounds lonely, Jaiwoo said one evening while adjusting her lighting panels. It is, Nari admitted. I've been stationed away from my homeworld for 3 years now, leading this peacekeeping force. 3 years of command. 3 years of being strong all the time. 3 years of sleeping in an empty bed and pretending it doesn't bother me. Is that why, the 18 months thing? Jaiwoo asked carefully. Nari nodded. The last time was a brief leave, a moment of weakness with another officer. It meant nothing. Just 2 lonely people trying to feel less alone for a night. She looked at her hands. But it didn't help. It just made the loneliness worse after. Jaiwoo didn't know what to say to that. He climbed down from the ladder and packed his tools away. For what it's worth, I think your culture is wrong. Strength isn't about being alone. Sometimes it takes more strength to admit you need someone. Nari looked at him with those glowing amber eyes. You're wise for someone so young. I'm not wise, Jaiwoo said, embarrassed. I just think people are people, no matter what species they are. Everyone needs connection. Even awkward human mechanics. Especially awkward human mechanics, Jaiwoo said with a smile. But not everyone was happy about their growing friendship. Other people on the station started noticing. The human maintenance crew whispered when Jaiwoo got another assignment to Nari's quarters. The Draconite officers watched with disapproving eyes when Nari asked Jaiwoo technical questions in the station corridors. One day, a tall Draconite officer stopped Jaiwoo in the hallway. He was nearly as tall as Nari, with darker scales and cold eyes. His uniform marked him as a senior military commander. "You are the human mechanic," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." Jaiwoo. "I am Commander Hyunwoo. I serve alongside Commander Nari." He stepped closer, looming over Jaiwoo. "I have noticed you spend significant time in her quarters." "I'm just doing maintenance work, sir. She requests repairs and I am aware of what you do," Hyunwoo interrupted. "I am also aware that Draconite warriors do not fraternize with lesser species. Especially not young, inexperienced humans." Jaiwoo felt anger spark in his chest. Lesser species. It is simply fact. Humans are weak, fragile, short-lived. You are a mechanic. She is a decorated commander. There is an order to things. Hyunwoo leaned down until his face was inches from Jaiwoo's. "Do not forget your place, human. And do not encourage Commander Nari to forget hers." He walked away before Jaiwoo could respond. Jaiwoo stood there, fists clenched, heart pounding. He'd never been spoken to like that before. Like he was nothing. Like he didn't matter. That evening, when he arrived at Nari's quarters for another repair job, she immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. Jaiwoo told her about the encounter with Hyunwoo. Nari's expression darkened. "He had no right to speak to you that way," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "I will speak with him." "No," Jaiwoo said quickly. "Don't. It'll just make things worse. He'll think I ran to you for protection." "Then what do you want me to do?" "Nothing. Just keep being my friend. That's enough." Nari looked at him for a long moment. "Hyunwoo is wrong, you know. About humans being lesser. About you being nothing." She placed a clawed hand on his shoulder, gentle despite her size. "You've shown me more kindness in 2 weeks than most of my own people have shown me in years." "I'm just being me," Jaiwoo said. "Exactly," Nari said. "And that's enough." But Jaiwoo noticed how Nari's jaw tightened. How her eyes glowed a little brighter. She was angry. Not at him, but for him. Later that night, Nari went to find Hyunwoo. Jaiwoo didn't know about this meeting until much later. But she confronted him in the officers' quarters. "Stay away from Jaiwoo," she told him. Hyunwoo raised an eyebrow. "Protecting a human? How far you've fallen, sister." "He's under my protection. That's all you need to know." "The other commanders are talking, Nari. They say you're going soft. That you're forgetting what it means to be Draconite." Hyunwoo crossed his arms. "This human is making you weak." "This human," Nari said coldly, "has more honor in his smallest finger than you have in your entire body. Now stay away from him. I won't warn you again." She left before he could respond. But Hyunwoo stood there, watching her go, his expression thoughtful and calculating. Things were changing on Horizon's edge. Friendships were forming across impossible divides. And some people didn't like that at all. Jaiwoo and Nari didn't know it yet, but they were standing at the edge of something much bigger than both of them. Something that would test everything they believed about themselves and each other. The explosion happened on a Tuesday morning. Jaiwoo was in the lower maintenance tunnels, checking power conduits, when the entire station shook. Emergency alarms screamed through the corridors. Red lights flashed everywhere. His communicator erupted with panicked voices all talking at once. "Explosion in Section C. We need emergency teams now." Multiple casualties reported. This wasn't an accident. Someone planted a bomb. Jaiwoo's first thought was of Nari. Section C was near the diplomatic quarters. He dropped his tools and ran. The corridors were chaos. People were running in every direction. Smoke filled the air. Security teams pushed through the crowds, weapons drawn. Jaiwoo fought his way forward, his heart pounding. He found Nari in the command center, surrounded by screens showing damage reports. Her armor was scorched on one side. A cut above her eye bled down her face, but she ignored it. Jaiwoo. She looked surprised to see him. What are you doing here? You should evacuate. Are you okay? He asked, breathing hard. I'm fine. But 3 delegates are dead and 7 more are injured. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. Someone is trying to sabotage the peace summit. Over the next few hours, the truth came out. A terrorist group calling themselves the Purity Front had claimed responsibility. They wanted the different species to keep fighting. Peace was bad for their business and their beliefs. The bomb was just the first attack. They promised more would come. Security increased everywhere. Armed guards stood at every corner. Everyone was searched before entering any important area. The delegates talked about leaving, about giving up on peace. Fear spread through the station like poison. Jaiwoo couldn't stop thinking about the explosion. About how close Nari had been to the blast. About how easily she could have died. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing that cut on her face, that scorched armor. Around midnight, his communicator buzzed. It was Nari. Can't sleep either, her message read. No, he typed back. Keep thinking about what happened. Come to my quarters. Let's talk. When Jaiwoo arrived, Nari looked exhausted. She'd changed out of her damaged armor and wore simple clothes. The cut on her face had been treated but still looked angry and red. You almost died today, Jaiwoo said. Almost doesn't count, Nari replied, but her voice was softer than usual. Sit down. You look like you're going to collapse. They sat together on her couch. For a while, neither spoke. Then Nari said, I've been in hundreds of battles. Faced death more times than I can count. But today was different. Today someone tried to kill peace itself. That feels worse somehow. Who would do this? Jaiwoo asked. People who profit from war. People who hate seeing different species working together. People who think strength means domination, not cooperation. Nari rubbed her temples. People like Hyunwoo, maybe. Jaiwoo sat up straight. You think Hyunwoo is involved? No. Maybe. I don't know. Nari sighed. He's been acting strange lately. Asking odd questions about security protocols. Spending time with delegates who oppose the peace talks. But that doesn't mean anything. It could be nothing. Or it could be something, Jaiwoo said. Over the next week, Jaiwoo started paying attention. He noticed things that others might miss. As a mechanic, he had access to areas most people couldn't enter. He saw things while crawling through maintenance tunnels and working in restricted sections. He noticed Hyunwoo meeting with a Krellian merchant known for selling weapons. He saw strange equipment being moved into storage areas near the diplomatic quarters. He found burn marks on power conduits that looked like someone had been tampering with them. At first, he wasn't sure what it all meant. But then he found the modified communicator hidden behind a panel in Section D. It was set to a frequency used by the Purity Front. Someone on the station was talking to the terrorists. Jaiwoo took the communicator and went straight to Nari. She was in a strategy meeting when he arrived, but he convinced her guard it was urgent. When she saw what he'd found, her face went hard. Where did you find this? She asked. Section D, near the secondary power junction. Someone hid it behind a maintenance panel. Jaiwoo pulled up his data pad. And that's not all. I've been keeping notes. Strange meetings. Unusual equipment movements. Security protocols being changed without explanation. Nari studied his notes carefully. Her expression grew darker with each page. This is serious, Jaiwoo. If you're right, someone inside the station is helping the terrorists. Someone with high-level access. Someone like Hyunwoo, Jaiwoo said quietly. Nari was silent for a long moment. We need proof. Real proof. Not just suspicions and odd behavior. If we accuse a senior Draconite commander without evidence, it could cause a diplomatic disaster. So what do? We investigate. Quietly. Just the two of us. Nari looked at him seriously. This will be dangerous, Jaiwoo. If Hyunwoo is involved, and if he finds out we're investigating him, he won't hesitate to eliminate us. I know, Jaiwu said. But we can't just do nothing. More people will die. Nari reached out and placed her hand over his. Her clawed fingers were warm and surprisingly gentle. You're braver than most warriors I know. I'm terrified, Jaiwu admitted. Good. Fear keeps you alive. It's stupidity that gets you killed. She squeezed his hand once, then let go. We start tomorrow. For now, go home. Get some rest. And Jaiwu? Don't trust anyone. Not even other humans. We don't know how deep this conspiracy goes. Over the next few days, Jaiwu and Nari worked together in secret. He used his maintenance access to check areas where Hyunwoo had been seen. She used her command authority to review security logs and communication records. They met late at night in her quarters to share what they'd learned. The evidence slowly built. Hyunwoo had made several unexplained trips to the lower cargo bays. He'd requisitioned equipment without proper authorization. He'd been present near every location where suspicious activity had occurred. And his financial records showed large payments from unknown sources. But they still needed definitive proof. Something that directly connected him to the Purity Front. Then Jaiwu had an idea. The next attack, he said. We know there will be one. The terrorists promised it. If Hyunwoo is coordinating with them, he'll need to communicate. He'll need to give them information about security, about timing, about targets. So we watch him, Nari said, understanding. We monitor his movements. We see where he goes and who he contacts. Exactly. And when he makes contact, we'll have our proof. It was risky. If they were wrong, they'd be spying on a senior officer for nothing. If they were right but Hyunwoo caught them, they'd both be in serious danger. But they had no choice. They set up their surveillance carefully. Jaiwu installed hidden cameras in the corridors Hyunwoo frequented. Nari arranged for security logs to be copied to her personal terminal. They took turns watching, waiting for Hyunwoo to make a mistake. 3 days passed. Then 4. Jaiwu was starting to think they were wrong. Maybe Hyunwoo wasn't involved. Maybe they were seeing conspiracies where none existed. Then, on the 5th night, Hyunwoo left his quarters at 3 in the morning. Nari's communicator buzzed, waking Jaiwu from where he dozed off on her couch. He's moving, she said, already pulling on her armor. Heading toward the cargo bays. They followed at a distance, using maintenance corridors to stay hidden. Hyunwoo moved with purpose, clearly knowing exactly where he was going. He bypassed security checkpoints using override codes. He took routes that avoided cameras. Finally, he entered a storage bay in the lowest level of the station. Through a cracked door, Jaiwu and Nari watched him meet with 3 figures in dark clothing. Even from a distance, Jaiwu could see weapons hidden under their coats. Nari recorded everything on her personal device. They couldn't hear what was being said, but they could see Hyunwoo handing over data chips. They could see him pointing to station schematics. They could see him accepting a case of something that glowed faintly in the dim light. We have him, Nari whispered. That's enough. We need to get this to station security before. The door behind them suddenly slammed open. A massive hand grabbed Jaiwu by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Another figure grabbed Nari, pressing a weapon against her spine. I knew you'd be trouble, Hyunwoo's voice said from the shadows. He stepped into view, smiling coldly. The great Commander Nari, brought low by a human mechanic. How pathetic. Jaiwu struggled to breathe. His vision started to blur. He saw Nari fighting against the weapon at her back, saw her eyes meet his with fury and fear. You should have stayed in your place, human, Hyunwoo said. Now you've forced my hand. Kill them both. Make it look like an accident. The hand around Jaiwu's throat tightened. Black spots danced in his vision. He tried to kick, to fight, but his attacker was too strong. This was it. He was going to die in a cargo bay, and no one would ever know the truth about Hyunwoo. Then Nari moved. She was faster than anyone had a right to be. Despite the weapon at her back, despite being held by trained soldiers, she twisted like lightning. Her tail whipped around and knocked the gun away. Her elbow smashed backward into her attacker's face. In 2 seconds, the soldier was on the ground, unconscious. The man holding Jaiwu turned to face the new threat. It was a mistake. Jaiwo might be human and weak compared to most species, but he'd grown up on a mining colony. He knew how to fight dirty. He brought his foot down hard on the attacker's instep, then slammed his head backward into the man's nose. The grip on his throat loosened just enough. Nari crossed the distance in a heartbeat. One punch and Jaiwo's attacker was down too. Run! Nari shouted, grabbing Jaiwo's hand. They ran. Behind them, Hyunwoo was shouting orders. Heavy footsteps pounded after them. Energy weapons fired, leaving scorch marks on the walls. Nari pulled Jaiwo into a maintenance corridor. It was cramped and dark, barely big enough for her to fit. But it was also a maze that only maintenance workers knew well. Jaiwo took the lead now, pulling Nari through turns and down ladders that the soldiers couldn't follow easily. They could still hear Hyunwoo's voice echoing through the corridors. Seal off the lower levels. I want them found. He's going to lock down the entire section, Jaiwo gasped, still trying to catch his breath. We need to get this recording to security before he can stop us. He has allies in security, Nari said. He's been planning this for months. We can't trust the normal channels. They emerged in a small equipment room. Jaiwo locked the door behind them and leaned against it, his heart pounding. Nari was checking her recording device, making sure the data was intact. We need to transmit this to someone we can trust, she said. Someone outside Hyunwoo's influence. The summit chairman, Jaiwo suggested. Ambassador Talon. He's neutral. He's not part of any military command structure. Nari nodded. Good thinking. But we need to get to a secure communication terminal. The ones in the maintenance areas won't work for encrypted diplomatic channels. The emergency command center, Jaiwo said. It has independent systems. If we can reach it, we can send the recording directly to the summit leadership. That's halfway across the station. Hyunwoo will have patrols everywhere by now. Then we go through the places he can't patrol. The maintenance tunnels. The ventilation systems. The waste processing corridors. Jaiwo pulled up a map on his datapad. I know every passage in this station. We can do this. Nari looked at him with something like pride. Lead the way, mechanic. They moved through the hidden spaces of Horizon's Edge. Through narrow pipes and cramped crawlspaces. Past humming machinery and rushing water. Jaiwo knew these paths like he knew his own hands. He'd spent months learning every shortcut, every secret route that made his job easier. Now those secrets were saving their lives. They heard soldiers searching above them. Heard Hyunwoo's voice giving orders over the communication channels. He declared them traitors. He'd told the station that Nari had gone mad, that she'd attacked him, that Jaiwo was a terrorist sympathizer. He was rewriting the story before they could tell the truth. He's smart, Nari said quietly as they waited in a ventilation shaft for a patrol to pass. I trained with him. Fought beside him. I never thought he'd turn against everything we stood for. Why do you think he did it? Jaiwo asked. War is profitable for some people. And Hyunwoo always loved glory more than peace. In peacetime, warriors like him become obsolete. The summit threatens his entire way of life. She shook her head. He'd rather watch the galaxy burn than become irrelevant. They reached the emergency command center after an hour of crawling through the station's guts. The room was empty, its emergency systems on standby. Jaiwo quickly accessed the communication terminal while Nari stood guard at the door. His fingers flew across the controls. He'd repaired these systems before. He knew how they worked. He established a direct encrypted line to Ambassador Talon's private terminal. Ambassador, this is Mechanic Jaiwo. I'm with Commander Nari. We have evidence of a conspiracy. Commander Hyunwoo is working with the Purity Front. We're transmitting video proof now. Please, you have to see this before he... The door exploded inward. Hyunwoo stood there, flanked by 6 armed soldiers. His weapon was drawn and pointed directly at Nari's chest. Step away from the terminal, he said calmly. The transmission is already sent, Jaiwo said, his voice steadier than he felt. It's over, Hyunwoo. Is it? Hyunwoo smiled. I've already declared you traitors. I'll say the recording is fabricated. That you created it to frame me because of your inappropriate relationship. Who do you think they'll believe? A decorated Draconite commander, or a human mechanic and the warrior who's been fraternizing with inferior species. They'll believe the evidence, Nari said, her voice cold. Evidence can be disputed. But your bodies? Your bodies will tell a clear story. The traitor commander and her human lover, killed while trying to sabotage the peace summit. Hyanwa's smile widened. Quite tragic, really. The soldiers raised their weapons. Jaiwu looked at Nari. She looked back at him. In that moment, something passed between them. An understanding. A decision. If they were going to die, they would die fighting. Nari moved first, throwing herself at the nearest soldiers. Her claws found armor joints. Her tail swept legs out from under attackers. She was a whirlwind of scales and fury, a reminder of why Draconites were feared across the galaxy. Jaiwu grabbed a heavy tool from a nearby workstation and swung it at another soldier. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't warrior training. But it worked. The soldier went down. Energy blasts filled the room. One caught Nari in the shoulder. She roared in pain but didn't stop. Another blast missed Jaiwu by inches, melting the wall behind him. Hyunwoo watched with cold amusement, letting his soldiers do the work. He was confident. Too confident. Then the door on the opposite side of the room burst open. Ambassador Talon stood there with a full security team. Real security. Not soldiers under Hyanwa's command. Station security that answered directly to the Summit Council. Stand down. Talon commanded. Commander Hyunwoo, you are under arrest for conspiracy, terrorism, and treason against the Peace Summit. Hyanwa's face twisted with rage. You can't arrest me. I'm a Draconite commander. I answer only to my own people. Your people have already been contacted, Talon said calmly. We transmitted the recording to the Draconite High Command 5 minutes ago. They've stripped you of rank and authorized your detention. The soldiers under Hyanwa's command looked uncertain. They lowered their weapons slowly, realizing they were on the wrong side. Hyunwoo made one last desperate move. He raised his weapon toward Jaiwu. If I'm going down, this human dies first. Nari threw herself in front of Jaiwu. The energy blast hit her square in the chest. She fell backward into Jaiwu's arms, her armor smoking, her eyes losing focus. Nari. Jaiwu screamed. No, no, no. Stay with me. Security swarmed Hyunwoo. They tackled him to the ground, disarmed him, dragged him away. He was still shouting about human corruption and warrior honor as they hauled him out of the room. But Jaiwu didn't see any of it. He was holding Nari, pressing his hands against the wound in her chest, trying to stop the bleeding. Her scales were hot under his fingers. Too hot. You're okay, he said, tears streaming down his face. You're going to be okay. Help is coming. Just hold on. Nari's hand reached up and touched his face. Her claws were gentle, barely touching his skin. 18 months, she whispered, smiling slightly. Worth it. Don't talk like that, Jaiwu said. You're not dying. I won't let you die. Stubborn human, she murmured. Her eyes closed. Medical teams rushed into the room. They pushed Jaiwu aside, surrounding Nari with equipment and urgent voices. Someone pulled Jaiwu back, telling him to give them room to work. He watched them load Nari onto a stretcher. Watched them rush her out of the room. Watched the trail of her blood mark their path. Then his legs gave out and he collapsed to the floor, shaking. Someone sat beside him. Ambassador Talon. The old diplomat put a gentle hand on Jaiwu's shoulder. She saved the summit, Talon said quietly. She saved all of us. You both did. She saved me, Jaiwu said, his voice broken. She took that blast for me. Then you must ensure her sacrifice means something, Talon said. You must survive. You must heal. You must honor what she gave. Jaiwu nodded, unable to speak. All he could think about was Nari's last words. Her smile. Her touch on his face. He didn't know if she would survive. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He loved her. And he was going to fight with everything he had to make sure she lived. Jaiwu spent 3 days in the medical center waiting room. He didn't leave. He barely slept. He sat in the same chair, staring at the door that led to the intensive care unit where Nari was fighting for her life. The doctors told him that the energy blast had burned through her armor and damaged her heart. Draconite physiology was different from human, but the wound was severe. They'd done emergency surgery. Now all they could do was wait. People came and went. Ambassador Talon visited to thank him personally. Other mechanics from his crew brought him food. Station security interviewed him about everything that happened. But Jaiwu barely heard any of them. His mind was in that room with Nari, willing her to survive. On the fourth day, a Draconite medical officer emerged from the intensive care unit. She looked tired but not sad. That had to mean something good. She's stable, the doctor said. The surgery was successful. Her heart is healing. She'll need time to recover, but she's going to live. Jaiwu felt like he could breathe again for the first time in days. Can I see her? She's still unconscious. But yes, you can sit with her. The room was dim and quiet except for the soft beeping of medical equipment. Nari lay in a bed specially designed for Draconite physiology. She looked smaller somehow, without her armor and weapons. More vulnerable. Tubes and wires connected her to various machines monitoring her vital signs. Jaiwu pulled a chair close to her bed and took her hand carefully. Her scales were cooler now, no longer burning with fever. He squeezed gently. I'm here, he said quietly. You saved me. Again. You always save me. His voice cracked. Now you need to save yourself. Wake up, Nari. Please wake up. 2 more days passed. Jaiwu stayed by her side. He talked to her about everything and nothing. He told her about how the peace summit was continuing, how Hyunwoo and his conspirators were in custody, how the Purity Front was being dismantled across the galaxy. He told her about the mechanics who kept asking when she'd be back to submit more repair requests. He told her how much he missed their conversations. On the 6th day, her eyes opened. You talk too much, she whispered, her voice rough from days of not speaking. Jaiwu laughed, tears streaming down his face. You're awake. You're really awake. Apparently. She tried to sit up and winced. How long? 6 days. You scared me half to death. Only half. A weak smile crossed her face. I must be losing my touch. Don't joke about this, Jaiwu said, but he was smiling through his tears. You almost died. But I didn't. She squeezed his hand with what little strength she had. Thanks to you. You got the evidence out. You saved the summit. You took a blast for me. You saved my life. We saved each other, Nari said simply. That's what partners do. Over the next few weeks, Nari recovered slowly. The doctors were amazed at how quickly she healed. They said Draconite warriors were incredibly resilient. But Jaiwu knew it was more than that. Nari had something to live for now. Someone to live for. But the recovery wasn't easy. Nari had to face a military tribunal. The Draconite High Command wanted to know why one of their commanders had fraternized with a human. Why she'd broken ranks. Why she defied a superior officer, even one who turned out to be a traitor. Jaiwu insisted on being there when she faced the tribunal. He stood in the back of the chamber, watching as 5 stern Draconite generals questioned Nari about her actions. You violated our military code, one general said. You formed an inappropriate attachment to a lesser species. You put personal feelings above duty. Nari stood tall despite her still healing wounds. I put truth above lies. I put peace above war. And I put honor above blind obedience. She looked each general in the eye. That human you call lesser showed more courage than most warriors I've known. He risked everything to expose a conspiracy that would have destroyed the summit and killed thousands. If respecting that makes me guilty, then I accept my punishment. The generals conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, the eldest spoke. Commander Nari, you violated numerous regulations. However, your actions also prevented a catastrophic terrorist attack and preserved the peace summit. We find your conduct contradictory to our traditions, but ultimately beneficial to our interests. What does that mean? Nari asked. It means we're stripping you of your military rank. You can no longer serve as a Draconite commander. The general paused. However, We're also awarding you the Star of Honor for preventing an act of terrorism. You may keep your military pension and benefits. You're free to live as you choose, without the constraints of military service." Nari stood silent for a moment. Then she bowed. "I accept your judgment." As she left the tribunal chamber, Jaiwoo rushed to meet her. "Are you okay? What will you do now?" Nari smiled. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her in weeks. "I'm free, Jaiwoo. For the first time in my life, I'm actually free. I don't have to follow orders. I don't have to be the perfect warrior. I can be whoever I want to be." "And who do you want to be?" She reached out and cupped his face with her hand. "Someone who doesn't waste 18 months being lonely when there's a good man right in front of her." Jaiwoo's heart skipped. "Nari. I know the rules say Draconites don't fraternize with humans. I know people will talk. I know it won't be easy." She leaned down until their foreheads touched. "But I don't care anymore. You make me happy. You make me feel like a person, not just a weapon. And life is too short to waste on following stupid rules." "People will judge us," Jaiwoo said softly. "Let them. I've spent my whole life worrying about what others think. I'm done with that." She pulled back to look at him properly. "Unless you don't want this. If you're not interested, I'll understand. I don't want to pressure you into." Jaiwoo kissed her. It was awkward because of the height difference and because her scales were unfamiliar against his skin and because he had no idea what he was doing. But it was also perfect. When they broke apart, Nari was laughing. "Was that your first kiss?" "Maybe," Jaiwoo admitted, his face burning red. "Good. Then we can learn together." The station administration offered Nari a position as head of civilian security. She accepted. It meant she could stay on Horizon's edge. It meant she and Jaiwoo could see each other every day without breaking any rules or causing diplomatic incidents. The peace summit concluded successfully. Multiple species signed the Horizon Accords, agreeing to work together instead of fighting. It was historic. It was everything they'd hoped for. And through it all, Jaiwoo and Nari built their relationship. They had dinner together in the station cafeteria, not caring who saw them. They took walks through the observation decks, watching ships come and go. They talked for hours about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. Other Draconite warriors started questioning their own cultural traditions. If the legendary Commander Nari could find happiness with a human, maybe the old ways weren't the only ways. Maybe strength didn't mean being alone. Maybe there were different kinds of courage. 6 months after the tribunal, Jaiwoo moved into Nari's quarters officially. They celebrated with a quiet dinner, just the two of them. "You know," Nari said, pouring wine into 2 glasses, "I've been thinking about that first night. When I drunkenly confessed my loneliness to a random mechanic." "I remember," Jaiwoo said, smiling. "You said you hadn't had intercourse in 18 months. 24 months now," Nari corrected, then grinned. "But I'm not lonely anymore. Haven't been lonely since you walked into my life. Even though I'm just a human mechanic? Especially because you're a human mechanic. You fixed more than my cooling system, Jaiwoo. You fixed something in me I didn't even know was broken." They touched glasses together. Outside the window, stars stretched to infinity. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked at the station, bringing people together, building connections, creating hope. "What do you think happens next?" Jaiwoo asked. Nari pulled him close. "I don't know. But whatever it is, we face it together." "Together," Jaiwoo agreed. They'd started with an awkward confession in a dark room. They'd survived conspiracy and terrorism and cultural disapproval. They'd learned that love didn't care about species or traditions or what anyone else thought was proper. And now they had something neither of them had believed possible. They had each other. They had a future. They had hope. The giant sister dragon woman and the virgin mechanic. It sounded like the beginning of a strange story. But really, it was just the beginning of their life.